Emulation? What's that? Now, I wasn't really sure if I wanted to include the topic of emulation here at first, but over time I figured that since this is a topic that involves software working on another kind of hardware, that it would be suitable for this learning path. So with that said, what is emulation, you may be asking? Well, emulation is a type of software that gives another piece of hardware the ability to act as another piece of hardware, thus emulating another piece of hardware so that a piece of software will be compatible with said piece of hardware. The actual hardware, that is, such as a computer. Let's say, for example, that a Windows 10 PC wants to be able to play GameCube games. Well, to do that, they would need an emulator. Let's say the Dolphin emulator, for example. For those wondering, the emulator is called Dolphin, as that was the code name for the Nintendo GameCube back then. But as for the emulation process itself, it is neither a remake nor a remaster in this case. Or even a port, technically speaking. Rather, what the emulator is doing is running the game as is with the original files that was given to it. So on paper, it would seem that emulators are a convenient tool for playing older games on modern hardware, right? Well, yes, but with a few caveats. One is that the emulation experience is generally not 100% when it comes to replicating the original experience. Don't get me wrong, emulators, especially ones with years and years in development, can do a remarkably good job at replicating the original experience. However, it is often an expectation to expect something out of the ordinary when it comes to even the most developed of emulators. These issues can range from the game crashing at certain points that weren't on original hardware, to graphical glitches that weren't there before. What's more is that these oddities can differ from game to game. This is likely a combination of how each and every game is programmed differently to run on the same hardware, as well as the more popular and well-received games tending to get more love and care when it comes to their optimizations on an emulator, when compared to lesser-known games anyway. It is worth noting that while many gaming companies will put out official releases using emulators, even their own emulators at times, but the emulators that I am talking about here are the ones that are unofficially made and/or handled. The reason why there are so many unofficial emulators out there often boils down to preservation efforts. You see, it is a sad truth for how there are many games out there, good games or bad games, that don't see any official re-releases. Even if there are technically a few options that one could do to bring an old game to modern platforms, such as recreating the entire game from scratch, emulators are often seen as the most practical option for replicating the experience of the original game on modern platforms, by having the original contents of the game work with what it thinks to be the original hardware. This, however, can pose something of a legality problem, especially when it comes to a combination of emulators for modern systems, plus the original files being distributed online for free, which in of itself equals piracy. Though if you're curious for more info, check out my short single mission learning path on the legality of emulators, and the line between what is legal and illegal.